The Game Boy was my first ever console, period. So today we're going to look through all the games I've amassed over the years. Some of them have good stories, some of them I just happened to find. But we're just going to take a look at everything I have Game Boy and Nintendo handheld related today. So let's go. Yeah, so what's funny about this is I don't have my original Game Boy, but for a lot of you, I would imagine that this looks pretty familiar. This is the Atomic Purple Game Boy Color. Now, my sister and I got these. This is actually her Game Boy. She hasn't touched it in probably 20 years, but this was her Game Boy, and so she didn't play nearly as much as I did. I had the teal one, which I've always really loved. I think that's kind of why I love the color teal these days. But before I get into anything collection related, I just want to say thank you so much for all of the support these videos have been getting. Some of my favorite things on my channel lately have been talking to you about your collections, your favorite games for the systems I've been covering. Very funny to see that a couple of people, when I got my PSP, they got the same exact games I did. So feel free to share your experiences. I genuinely love the conversations that have been happening in the comments, so let's chat. Let's talk about some video games, huh? But yeah, enough rambling about that. Just definitely don't feel afraid to reach out and just say, like, games I should pick up, games I should look out for, what games in my collection are bad, whatever. Just reach out. But anyway, we're gonna get into it. So this is where it all started. I was devastated one day when my Game Boy career originally came to an end because my Game Boy got stolen out of my car. My teal Game Boy was jacked, and everything along with it was gone. Most of my collection from that time went away with it, but since then, I've pretty much tried to amass what I had back then, plus some. Some things definitely stayed very much in my memory. Other things just fell to pieces, and just right out of mind. So some of this stuff is going to be original from what I had, have reamassed, and some of it is just new additions. So let's get started. This is a totally unmodified Atomic Purple Game Boy. We already know that. But let's look at my handhelds besides that first. We'll put this over here. In 2016, this is a sob story, but I'm not looking for pity. My grandma passed away. And that was really hard on me because she was one of the main people in my life. But to escape the grief and all of that, I got into Game Boy modding, which was a really big scene at that point because that was around the time Pokemon Go came out, and like people were really into like Game Boy modding, more so than before. And this was before all the kits, like the backlight kits, came out, and you just kind of had to use the parts and pieces of different systems to make a Frankenstein thing within your Game Boy to make it do whatever you want it to do. So I took a bunch of absolutely junked Game Boy SPs and just saved their screens and made these. I made this, and I made this. All of these are basically the same thing outside of color scheme. So I call this the Met Boyd. That's not my idea, frankly. This was someone else's idea. This is what I call the Pika Boy. Again, I don't think that's my idea, but essentially they all have backlights in them, so you can play these in the dark. Wow. Oh, let's get another listen to that. Nostalgia at play. But yeah, I dumped my heart and soul into getting these things working, mainly to sell them, but I never actually brought myself to part with any of them because they never met my high expectations. Like you can see there's like this weird air bubble in the screen that I put in here. That was straight shipped to me like that. I thought it was a screen protector, but it's not. It's just messed up. So I couldn't sell it like that, so it's mine now. This has this weird lip that you probably would never notice because you wouldn't be feeling the screen like this, but the screen cover never fit flush, and that always annoyed me, so I never wanted to send it out in case somebody had an issue with that. So again, Pika Boy is mine. This was originally supposed to be made for myself because this screen wasn't sellable and I'll show you why. It's this weird thing that... The batteries are in this one. It's this weird thing that you're going to see very quickly where the backlight has pixels that die, but the actual screen still shows an image. It's a very strange phenomenon that happens that I've never really gotten a straight answer on. But essentially what happens is there's this line of dead backlight pixels where you can still see the image. You see that? You see that line right there? Yeah, so if you're playing a game, like say Mario, you can still see the bricks underneath the line, like they're still there, but they aren't lit up. So I really have no idea why that's the thing, but this was always mine. This is actually what I carried with me for most of the summer of 2016. It's pretty dusty. But I freaking loved this thing. This was my first successful mod of pretty much anything. I tried originally to go back and do Game Boy Color front light mods, but that was just such a stick a band-aid on it solution for lighting. It was not ideal, to say the least, but yeah, this was my first triumph. Like, this is the system that like kind of taught me that if something is broken, you can fix it. It's just a matter of figuring out how, no matter what it be. This is really where a lot of my DIY love has come from, just taking things apart, putting them back together, and then modifying them to do different things. So like this, I don't want to sound cliche, but this kind of changed my life a little bit because it gave me a whole new viewpoint on how things work. So I'm always going to love this purple Game Boy for that. Let's take these batteries out so they don't corrode and then destroy the thing that I just said I loved. Let's get those out of the way. So this is just another unmodified Game Boy Advanced. It was sold to me as broken, but it works totally fine. I got it for literally like $3. Somebody on Let Go was just like, I don't want this anymore, take it. There is a crack in the shell right here, but I was never going to, well, I say that. I originally had the intent to modify this thing, but I could never get the parts again. But basically what happens is this got cracked probably from dropping. I was going to swap the shell out anyway and add a backlight to it. That might be fun to do, actually, now that all of these backlight mods are out there. Give this thing a little bit of a second life. But yeah, this is just, I think this is called the Frost or the Ice color. I don't really remember, but yeah. So while my Game Boy Advanced modding was more or less a success, there was one thing that I always wanted to do, was make a Game Boy... Oh, what is it called? It's not the Micro. It's the... Oh, it's... I'm like forgetting the name of it. But basically, you take the bottom half of a DS display or a DS Lite display, and then you break the top off, which I did not do. I took a broken DS and turned it into a Mega Game Boy? That doesn't sound right. God, I cannot think of the name. But, like, I took a absolutely destroyed Mario Anniversary Nintendo thing. Like, the screen was cracked. Like, the top screen was cracked off. The hinges were all shattered. Like, it was disgusting. So they sold it to me for, like, $5. Because it was basically like they were beyond hope for it. So I took it, and I tried to make it a Super Famicom Game Boy Mega. Why can't I not remember the name of it? Anyway, the big Game Boy. So basically what this does is, when you've got the Game Boy Advanced card slot right here, you can set your DS when you have a game to auto boot into whatever is in here. So basically, you've got this massive Game Boy Advanced, essentially, with all the original buttons plus some extra that I think some games you could remap for, or like the system would have a way to remap it. But essentially, like, you just have a very large Game Boy Advance with a big backlit display. It was really cool. The paint didn't go so well. I used something called Sugru to like even this out. But what it turned out to be was I didn't sand it enough, and the paint has started chipping away a little bit. But this was my like creative project. It works. It works really well, actually. I love the clickiness of these buttons. But yeah, I don't use it too much just because I don't like looking at it. I feel like a failure when I look at it. But yeah, the buttons feel really good. This is a really great way to play Game Boy Advance games, especially without the clamshell weighing you down when you only need half of it. That's just a personal preference. But yeah, if you ever want to do something like this, it's actually really easy. It's just a matter of soldering in a resistor in a specific place to make sure the DS can like boot up and bypass the fact that there's no second display. So yeah, I highly recommend doing this. Definitely check out a tutorial on doing it if you ever want to do something like that, because, I mean, if you do this right and paint it well, like, this is a really cool thing to have. It's like the opposite of a Game Boy Micro. That's why I keep calling it the Game Boy Mega, even though I cannot remember what the name of it is. So now we're getting into more modern territory. I really didn't like the 3DS. I was a Vita person through and through when that came out, and I mean, you look at the 3DS, like the original 3DS, and I was like, this is the chunkiest little piece of cake that I've ever seen. Like, I did not like it in the slightest. I didn't think the screens looked good. They looked small. It was cramped in my hands. Like, I had cousins who let me play it just to see, and I just could not do it because I loved my Vita so much. But like, it's 2020 now, and the 3DS got many revisions to make it better. It's got the 2DS variety, which is very cool because there's so many different interesting collector's versions that you can get for the 2DS, and there's a few that I really want, but I'm not gonna go out and buy a bunch of 2DSs. But there is a very good library at this point to go back to, and I've had a really good time going back and kind of like using GameStop as a 7-day rental service where I'll play some 3DS games and then return them. Not as defective, because that just junks them, but like, I just say, I don't want it anymore, and they're like, okay, that's part of our policy for some reason. But I couldn't help myself. Oh my god, it's beautiful. This system is beautiful. I absolutely love the Hylian Shield 2DS. It's a three-dimensional piece of art. Like, the Triforce is raised, all the designs are raised. The only thing not raised is the paint, but that makes sense. This thing is absolutely, this is gorgeous. I'm trying to get this in frame, but like, I love this. I played Link Between Worlds for the first time, and like, playing it on this was amazing. It's even got a brown power button to match the leather. The buttons are brown too. So like I said, I love this system. I don't like the circle pad at all. The D-pad's a little bit loose. Like, you can hear it rattling around, and when you're playing it, it's kind of evident, but like, it does the job. You can put up with it to play some of these amazing games. I also have this Legend of Zelda case that kind of looks like it's got tusks coming out of it because it comes with 2 free styli. There you go. And like, I love this thing. I would never consider parting with this, especially because you can hack these and do a lot of things with them. But yeah, look how big this touchscreen is. Look how big this screen is. Like, it's beautiful, and like, who needs the 3D anyway, really? Honestly. But yeah, love the 2DS. I love the Pokeball 2DS. I love the Pikachu with its raised nose 3DS. Very funny. But let's set aside the hardware and get into some games, shall we? There's probably no better place to start in a Game Boy collection than with Tetris. Tetris is like, it's kind of like the Trojan horse that got the Game Boy into fame, right? Like, it's Tetris. It's one of the most popular franchises of all time. Like, what can I say about Tetris other than that? I love Tetris. This Tetris is very difficult without the hold button. It's a much more challenging version of Tetris because instead of like being able to swap pieces around if you don't want to use them, you kind of just are stuck with what you got. So if you're not, if you think Tetris is too hard as it is, definitely don't play this. It's tough. Another important one to start with is Super Mario Land for the Game Boy. So a lot of these are Game Boy exclusive, meaning like these came out on the original Game Boy, and then the Pocket, and then the Color. So like these are all in black and white. Same with Tetris. You can get on the Game Boy Color, you can add different color filters, which will change the colors of the sprites and things like that. But like these are black and white games through and through, and Super Mario Land's super weird. It's kind of like the Zelda 2 of Mario to a lesser extent in that, like, when you jump on top of... You can't throw shells. When you jump on a Koopa, they explode like a bomb. You can drive vehicles at some point, like you drive a submarine. Very, very weird game, but it's also very fun. The second Super Mario Land, Super Mario and the 8 coins or something like that, is more of a traditional Mario game with a lot more detail in the sprite work, but like this game is still very good. I don't know if it's as good as some other games. It's probably not aged as well, but like when you had this as a kid, like you were entertained for a long time. So I guess we'll just keep the Mario train going. Super Mario Bros. Deluxe. I'm covering the name because it has my friend's name written on it for some reason. I think I left it at his house, and his dad wrote on it that it was his. So I'm going to make sure he's not outed. But, God, this is just Super Mario Brothers with some extra features, and it's everything you love about Mario. It's just on the go. Kirbys Dreamland. This is a cool little Kirby game. I can't say much about it. I don't think I've ever beaten it, but like you can ride animals, you can it's one of the better Kirby games cuz like Kirby kind of ranges kind of all over the place from being too easy to like being just repetitive, but this is a pretty solid Kirby game. I remember playing this a lot, handing it off with my friends at the time. We all really enjoyed it, so definitely check this one out. It's a good Kirby game. Speaking of Kirby, Kirby's Pinball Land. This was one of those strange Nintendo pinball games where they take their IPs and try to add that specific twist on them. So Kirby's Pinball Land was a little bit more simpler, honestly. This was, I think, before Tilt and Tumble, before they started using like an accelerometer to tilt Kirby. This was a pretty tame pinball game compared to some of the games that came later, which I will get to because one of these pinball games that's coming is about to... I have feelings on it, but Kirby's Pinball Land is okay. I don't know if I should have paid $8 for it, but I guess value is relative, and it's pretty solid. It's not like it's broken. It's just whatever. So I'm lumping these three games together because they're more or less the same thing. There's Super Breakout and Battle Zone, and Alleyway. All of these are basically just Brick Breaker. I grew up with this one, this cartridge itself, Super Breakout, because it was really fun. Like, it's why I love Brick Breaker to this day. Alleyways is probably a little bit better because it's like, it's got a little bit more thought put into it. Like, Mario is actually driving the bar that goes at the bottom of the screen, left and right, that launches the ball. Very cool. Mario didn't need to be doing that, but he is, so it's funny that they put thought into that. So I should have done this one earlier, but Tetris Attack is the less loved version of Tetris, I should say. The first time I ever played Tetris Attack was actually on my Game Boy, not my Game Boy, my graphing calculator in high school. While everyone else was playing Tetris, I was playing Tetris Attack, and I mean, I got really good at it, but when you're playing something and getting really good at something no one cares about, it's kind of like whatever. So I kind of just kept that to myself. But I love Tetris Attack. It's such a different little puzzle game because it really makes you think differently because you can only move certain blocks certain ways using your little selector. You can't do vertical swaps. You can only do left and right swaps. So it makes you think a lot more spatially. And it's a really cool game. It's very challenging. It's probably much more difficult than Tetris to the average person. But I can't recommend it enough. It's so much fun. So I got this one, Spy vs. Spy, because I loved the Spy vs. Spy graphic novel as a kid. Or maybe not a graphic novel, but a compilation of all of the Spy vs. Spy comic strips. This game is like a versus game that you can play alone, but it's definitely made to be played for two people with two Game Boys linked up. And basically you're trying to take out the other spy using environmental hazards and traps and things like that. So it's random. It's kind of randomized, so you're not doing the same thing over and over, but I didn't really have much of a chance to play it with anybody else when I was younger because of the fact that when I got this, no one else had Game Boys anymore. Everyone was moving on to other things, so. This one's funny. Tony Hawk Pro Skater is not a good game on the Game Boy. Like, it's more of a downhill jam game than it is a Tony Hawk Pro Skater game. And so, if I recall correctly, you're racing down a course, and when you do jumps and things like that, instead of getting to do button combos and things like that, you just get like a splash screen that tells you the trick you did. It's very funny. It's good for some laughs. It's not worth very much, especially because you can just... I mean, you can emulate PS1 games so well now that you might as well just play Pro Skater on the go, really, honestly. I don't even know where this came from. I think this came with one of the collections that I picked up so I could use the screens in the SP. I've definitely gotten some other people's collection. And basically, like, it's interesting to find out what games they played as kids because I've never played Divas Mulmania. But I wonder if oops. I wonder if they did. I wonder if they liked it at all. I haven't played it. I probably don't plan on playing it, but it's in my collection. Who wants to be a millionaire? I mean, it's Millionaire. I mean, did you ever go to, like, the computer lab as a kid and play Who Wants to Be a Millionaire on your computer, like I did at my school? Like, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was, like, the coolest thing ever. At that time, because you could win $1 million, which does nothing these days. And it was always fun when you played not the kids game, but like the computer game. You could always make it to the $1 million and be like, man, I could win $1 million if only I could make it on the show. Only to find out that the questions are much more difficult on the actual show than they are on the Game Boy game, especially, but also the PC game. It's just a fun little trivia game. It'll pass the time. So this is a game I have very fond memories of. I played this a lot as a kid. What's also funny is I made it to the last level of this game not because I actually earned it, but because I accidentally guessed the password for the final level. And so Driver is a top-down version of the original Driver game, sans the impossibly hard tutorial level that a lot of people never made it across. I genuinely like this game because the controls are tight, it knows exactly what it is, it does a pretty good job of manipulating speed, representing speed on screen. You've got different cars to drive, which sounds kind of crazy, even though they're like really just tic-tacs with different colors and stripes. But like, this game is surprisingly good. Don't sleep on it. It's not like mind-blowing or anything, but Driver for the Game Boy is actually much better of a demake, I should say, than a lot of other games that came to the Game Boy. So if you ever see this or just want to use your legally purchased backups to play this game, definitely give it a chance. I got Gex 3, which is surprisingly a meme now again, thanks Scott the Waz. Never did I think I'd hear about Gex ever again, but Gex 3 came to the Game Boy. I don't know if the first two games came. I didn't have them, but I had Gex 3. This was one of my original cartridges, and I got it because of the snowboard. I really liked extreme sports and snowboarding, and I'm pretty sure that I never actually got to the point in the game where you actually get to ride the snowboard, if there even is one at all. This game is hard. Hard. Like, definitely retro difficult, especially because I don't think it's particularly well adapted to the Game Boy. It's side-scrolling, and there's enemies, and, like, you have to, like, tail whip your enemies, and what happens is the hitboxes are a little bit janky and weird, so you might not be able to beat the game in a fair way. I say that, I should probably go back and play this game a little bit more, because like I said, I never finished it, and I'm wondering how hard it is today, now that I'm 25. But maybe that'll be a video one day. So another one of my original games was Wario Land 2. This game, surprisingly good. I know a lot of people love the Wario Land games. 2 I thought was fantastic because it was so different from Mario. It was well adapted to the character, and I think that's a really strong... like, it didn't just feel like a reskin Mario game. It felt like it was made from the ground up for Wario. And when he's changing into things, when he gets stung by bees and swells up, like, it's very strange and dark and weird, but, like, you gotta, if you like Game Boy games and you haven't played these yet, you've gotta try them because they're so different than any of the other platformers you're gonna find on the system. So here's one that I'm really looking forward to playing at some point. Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Ages. I know there's Oracle of Seasons as well. I really want to get that cartridge as well, but this was one of the games that came with the other Game Boys I got for parts, because people didn't have... They didn't have a system to play anymore, so they just gave me their games. And I put a new save battery in this. That's why it's like yellow and huge and stands out like a sore thumb. But change the save battery. I'll eventually play this. But yeah, I've heard it's very good. I've heard you need to play both games to like really experience both, like the whole story. And I think that's really cool. It's kind of like Pokemon in that way. You kind of need both games to get all the Pokemon, where you need both games to get the story out of this. But that also means you have to buy 2 games, so, like, talk about a price sink. NASCAR freaking Racers. This was like a cartoon when I was a kid. I played a lot of the PC game. I got this at some point. I don't remember much about it. But I loved the cartoon. I basically had all the merchandise. I think I got this actually not even that long ago, just out of nostalgia's sake. I was like, might as well. If I remember this, I definitely had this game as a kid and I played it, but it was one of the things that got lost when the Game Boy got stolen. So, if I remember correctly, it's another top-down racing game that does an okay-ish job of bringing over what's good about the cartoon to the Game Boy. The problem is, when you've got cars like, I mean, they're not the Mach 5, but if you've ever seen Speed Racer, they have different powers and abilities. Adapting those different abilities, especially like the jumps, is very difficult on a 2-dimensional screen. So, it's okay. It's a racing game. It's probably worth playing if you're interested in just some of the random racing games that are on the Game Boy. So like I said, I had Mario World 2. I cannot find it. I literally have like a fanny pack full of games that are like all the games I have, and I can't find it for some reason. That's disappointing, but I have that somewhere. Sonic 3 Advance. I got this because the Sonic games on the Advance are pretty good. I think the Sonic Rush series is a little bit better on the DS and onward. But if you're looking for Sonic on the Game Boy Advance, like, this is perfect for you. It's exactly what you want it to be. Oh, here it is. I forgot I had 2 piles of games. Speaking of Mario World 2, Mario Land 2, this game is great. It's, if you're looking for a more original Mario game that plays a lot like the Mario you know and love, this is it. It's fun. It's fun. The levels are creative. You just got to play it for yourself. I have 2 copies of this Super Mario World, the Game Boy remakes. These are very faithful remakes of Super Mario World for the Game Boy Advance, and I sunk hours into this and never ever finished it. I actually finished Mario World with a friend over the Nintendo Switch Online service not that long ago, and it was very cool to finally beat it and see what I missed out on all these years. So Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 is a little bit more faithful to the series. Instead of doing the downhill jam racing style of game like Pro Skater 1, you have two-dimensional representations of all the levels. So like the hangar from Pro Skater 2, if you've ever played Tony Hawk, it's all compressed into one two-dimensional thing. So you've got all the goals, but you're going back and forth on a two-dimensional thing. It's a cool concept. It was very difficult working with only 2 buttons, though. You had a jump and a trick button, and I could never get tricks consistently down. So it might be tough to go back to this one, but I'm actually kind of tempted because I'm going through a Tony Hawk phase right now again. Where I'm going back and playing all the old games, which there will be a video soon on the N64 games. I'm actually actively working on that now as we speak. But yeah, Tony Hawk had a very interesting run on the Game Boy, especially since the 2 games look so different. NFL football, I got it for like 50 cents, never played it, just thought it was cool that it had all 32 teams, or not even 32. All of the current teams at the time, I guess the 30 teams before the Panthers and the Texans were added. Yes, I think I got that right. Yes, I did. Yay. I know sports. Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Spooked, was another one of my sister's games. I never played it. Can't say much about it. Sorry. Star Wars Flight of the Falcon was another one of those games that came with other people's collection when I bought their broken systems. Never played this one. Haven't really heard much about it, so you'll have to let me know if you played it, if it's any good. Have to go back and play it. All these games have like this strange residue from their stickers from before. Toy Story 2 was surprisingly fun for a 2D platformer based off a movie. I know the PS1 game, a lot of people used to really like it. It's kind of a cult classic. This is one of those games for me where I'm sure it's not very good, but I have amazing memories of that opening scene in Toy Story 2 when Buzz ziplines down the bed and then jumps on the ball and flies out the window to go save Woody. Like, they actually recreated it in the Game Boy game, and it was so cool. The only problem was you only had one chance to do it, and if you weren't trying to do it, then you would miss it, and you would be stuck on level 1 in perpetuity. It was very difficult. So here we have a twofer. ScoobyDoo and the Cyber Chase and ScoobyDoo Mystery Mayhem. Never played this. Came with someone else's system. Family Feud for the Game Boy Advance. This came in another system as well. Like this, I have strong memories of this being stuck in this, and this is how I got this. Except it had a broken display on top. Never played it. I used to really like Family Feud, but I haven't seen it in a while, so can't really comment. Super Mario Bros. 3, or technically Super Mario Bros. Advanced 3, Advanced 4, Super Mario Bros. 3. It's a mouthful. Their naming, their numbering scheme for all of these remakes was kind of crazy. Because I think Super Mario 2 was the first Game Boy Advanced remaster. Mario World was the second. And then 3 was... I think 3 was 1, and then this is 4. So it's all over the place. So I don't have too many DS games anymore because of my DS collection being sold for other things, but Nintendogs Golden, not Golden Retriever, Lab and Friends was like it in 2005. Like, it's all I played. Fantastic. I love the Nintendog games. I wish they would come back for the Switch in some way, but yeah, these games are still fun to go back to because who doesn't want to raise a dog that you don't actually have to clean up after? Jet Grind Radio. This game I got on a trip to Fort Lauderdale with a friend. After we played Jet Set Radio Future on his Xbox the entire trip, I couldn't believe when I walked into Toys R Us that they had a portable version. Longtime viewers of my channel might remember this being alluded to as a part 3 of the Jet Set Radio Future. I mean the Jet Set Radio franchise. I still have intents of doing a video on this, but I'm trying to like build up the courage to actually try this again. Cause this game is pretty difficult, if I remember correctly as a kid. Like, it's an isometric version of Jet Grind Radio, and it's very similar, or it's in the similar vein as the Tony Hawk Underground and Underground 2 variants for the Game Boy, where it was an isometric display. You had like the jump buttons attached. You had the A button, the jump button, but your flips and grabs were L and R. It's a very weird control scheme. That was likely due to the fact that the Game Boy Advance was lacking buttons. But I'm going to go back to this and do this eventually, just to keep on waiting. So one of my favorite players of all time in the NFL is Bo Jackson. So when I saw that this exists, Bo Jackson Football and Baseball, I had to get it. I never played it because I guarantee you it's very bad, but it's funny. I got this for super cheap. I did not know this existed until I saw it, which is just insane. So I'm really excited that I got this. Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. This is not the DX one. This is the original release for the Game Boy. So originally this was in this, and then when the Game Boy Color came out, they re-released it as a DX version, which had a whole extra dungeon called the Color Dungeon. And basically the only difference between the game was this one was in black and white, the other one was in color and had the Color Dungeon. But besides that, it's the same game. This game actually came out on Switch. You might remember it. I had a blast with it. I don't think it's my favorite 2D Zelda game, but I thought it was really good. And I had a really good time with it. It was very fun. It definitely had some old school quirks to it. But I think for a remaster of a game that I don't think anyone was expecting, it was really good. If you find the Game Boy the Game Boy cartridge of it, it's definitely worth playing. So definitely check it out. It's a very good Zelda game if you like Zelda games, especially the 2D ones. So the pinball game I was alluding to was Mario's Pinball Land, one of the strangest games I have ever played in the Mario series. I can't tell if it's great or horrible, but I think that alone makes it interesting. It's very difficult. It's tough as nails. A lot of things are just hard to do in it because it's a pinball game. A lot of it is up to chance. So when you're trying to progress through the game, which is essentially kind of like this strange story where you're trying to make it through Bowser's castle, but you have to collect stars, and you have to do different things. Like, this game gets difficult because you could be like one enemy away. You have to kill 5 enemies, say, and you get 4 of them. If you fall out of the stage, you have to do all 5 again. So it's tough. I've been trying to play this again, and I got a lot farther than I did in the past, but it is no cakewalk. This game is tough, tough, tough. But, I mean, give it a try. You might love it, you might hate it, but either way, you'll have an opinion on it, and that'll help me figure out if it's good or bad. So now we're into what I consider the crown jewel collection of my Game Boy collection. And that's going to start with this, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red Team. This game actually just got ported to Switch as well, and I think this game itself, especially the Switch port, shows just how old this game is, and how far dungeon crawlers have come, because this feels like a very simple dungeon crawler, especially for the time. I think you can still have a lot of fun with it. Like, these are cult hits. Like, people who love these absolutely love these. There's a piece of dust flying all over it. But I've been playing the Switch one. I still think it's really good if you like a dungeon crawler kind of thing. It's a very approachable one, if not a little bit light on content, if that makes any sense, because every dungeon is procedurally generated, but you just kind of have an issue where once you get to a certain point in the game, you kind of know what all of the items are you can get, and it's kind of polarizing for that reason. There's not a ton of variety. So this is my custom modified Pokemon pinball game. Part of me is proud of it, part of me regrets doing this. So you'll just have to tell me what you think. And basically, so I had the cartridge and it was in pretty rough shape. So what I did was I went online and got this custom sticker. I didn't make the sticker, somebody else did, but it's a gold foil thing, and it looks like a pinball table from the game. And so this works totally fine. It works perfectly, but it's just modified to have this custom thing on it, and it's also very flat, as opposed to the other one, which kind of sticks out of the top right here. It's got this for the battery. You needed a I think it was a AAA battery to make the rumble work, but it was interesting. It was very ahead of its time, but like I really don't know if I like this mod anymore. It's better than it was, but I don't know. Really don't know. But yeah. So here we go, my Pokemon collection, which is the actual crown jewel of my collection. So the only one I'm missing is Crystal, which, I mean, given the prices on those things, good luck to me for finding those. I used to love the original Pokemon. In fact, Gold is my favorite gen, and given how far and different Pokemon is now from when it was then, where it was really challenging and difficult, I don't see any game coming close to beating Gold for my favorite. I just loved how challenging it was. I loved how the New Game Plus kind of thing was after you get all the badges, you go back to Kanto and then do all of the gyms again and then finally beat Ash. Like, that's really cool. It was a really cool sequel game that really paid homage to how big the first games were. But yeah, I I beat Gold on this original cartridge, and it was so exciting because I finally did it after all that time. I did it in 2016 when everything kind of happened and I got into Game Boy modding. I took this game to the beach and beat it over a week, and just, I was blown away. I absolutely loved it. It just cemented how much I love Gold, and really cemented it as my favorite game in the series thus far. And yeah, so this is all original, and I'm really happy to have all these. I really wish I had Crystal just to complete the set, but considering I have all of these in such good condition, I couldn't be happier with it. Plus, what's interesting about this one is I originally modified it so that when you put it in the Game Boy, the cartridge would illuminate. I don't think it works anymore, now that I think about it. Let's find out. No, it doesn't. But hey, it did at one point, and I could probably make it do it again. But yeah, it was just an interesting mod that I had done to it, and I honestly, so for a while I didn't play Pokemon because when I was a kid I had Red, and my friend picked up my Game Boy and he was like, "Can I play Pokemon?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." He deleted my save. He deleted it. So I lost everything and then never came back to it. I have still never beaten Gen 1 because of it. I've gotten close, but I just can't bring myself to beat it because of how frustrating of an experience that was. But yeah, that wraps up my collection. Hope you found something interesting. I have a lot of obscure garbage that I've just amassed. Mainly from other people donating their collections to me once I buy their systems. And yeah, I really like my collection the way it is. I like how weird and quirky it is. And there's so much great stuff in it that you wouldn't think about. Like Toy Story 2 is still cool. Driver is still cool. It's interesting to see Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 on here. Like, the Game Boy was such a weird system, and the Game Boy Color especially kind of upped what was possible for the original Game Boys, and you got some really weird and cool things on it, and it's always going to hold a special place in my heart. I don't return to these games that much just because there's a lot more stuff that I haven't played before more recently, but these games, especially like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, I played the blue one on DS with a friend, and we couldn't put it down until we finished it. Like, just, the Game Boy was such a magical thing at the time that I'm excited to have a collection I'm proud of owning. And I think that's pretty much all I have to say about it. But again, if you like this video, please be sure to leave a like on it. Like I said before, please start a conversation with me. Tell me your favorite games. Let's talk about the stuff that I don't have in my collection that I definitely need to pick up. And lastly, if you want to see more of this stuff, please subscribe. I am going to do probably another collection video or two before I get back to normalcy, but I am working on other videos as we speak, just so I have stuff built up and I'm not like on this weekly grind of doing videos, because that has been a real challenge, especially since I want to do some bigger, longer games for y'all. And yeah, so I'll see y'all in the next video.